Did we overreact too early? I don't know. I don't know where I stand. If this team's good, if this team's bad, if they're somewhere in the mushy middle, I have no clue. But it is good to see some power.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As always, I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden Fabi Wasco. Carter First, too, as well on our main Twitter, at Locked On Jays. Carter's got it there underneath his name. If you guys want to follow us on TikTok and Instagram, it's Locked On Blue Jays, at Locked On Blue Jays. And if you're new here to YouTube or you're listening on somewhere else, if it's Amazon, if it's Apple or Spotify, wherever, come over to the YouTube page, hit the subscribe button anyway. It helps us out. And then you guys will be able to get the live streams, the shorts, the podcast, the videos, everything right there on the YouTube page. I don't know. I don't know if we have to eat crow. I don't know what it is. I guess I'm going to start off, Carter, asking you, have these last two games changed your opinion? I know we were down in the dumps. I mean, I think it fairly enough because this team was bad for like a 10-game stretch. They were bad. Then they go and they take the series against Boston. Has it changed your opinion at all?
I think this team obviously still has holes. There is a fifth starter rotation spot where I don't know how they're going to manage that until Max Scherzer comes back. And then obviously the home run thing still might be an issue. But man, the last two games, whole lot of fun when you actually can hit the ball, when you actually hit home runs. So I'm obviously worried about the lineup, but it's nice to see the big boys in your lineup, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s, the Anthony Santanders hitting 3-run home runs, which we haven't really seen at all this year. We got two of those in this series, the second and third ones of the year. So it's just nice to have the big boys back. I think this team is going to still struggle with getting some of the middle of the order production. Daulton Varsho has been looking really good at the plate right now, too. So I'm not going to try to dwell on all the negatives that this team has right now. Every team does have holes, obviously. These last two games, let's just focus on the positives because we had a lot of negativity over the 10 games previously. So watching Vladdy hit home runs, watching Santander home runs, honestly, just watching a lot of the players on this team hit home runs, it's just a lot easier to watch a team when you're actually scoring runs in a baseball game.
Yeah, it's, you know what? I turned on the game yesterday, and of course, we were out at the whiteout, but of course, we were watching beforehand, before we left, and it was a fun game to watch. Carter asked me, actually, it was in the first inning of 2 games ago, I guess, or the second game of the series. He goes, because we had a bunch of people over, we weren't sure, should we keep the game on the main TV or should we put it on the small TV and vice versa? And I'm like, man, well, if they're not going to show up, like, just put it on the small TV because me and you might be the only two people caring about this. And they popped off and it was fun. Then this last game, it was fun. Hitting home runs, hitting the long ball. That's fun baseball. And I guess where I stand on all this, Carter, is did we overreact? Maybe. But it was tough to have any type of other reaction at that point. And I think it's going to be a lot of this season the same way where you go through a stretch of, oh my God, this might be the worst hitting team in baseball. And then the next 5 games, it could be better. I mean, they hit 6 home runs in 3 games. That is the best in any stretch of this season so far. So you got to be happy with what they've gotten. Now, can they carry this on moving forward? Again, you can't expect that Santander, Vladdy, and Varsho hit a home run every game. That's just not realistic. But I think the insertion of Daulton Varsho back into this lineup is massive. I think he gives this offense another layer. I think then you don't have to rely on some of these guys that you're not as confident in, like the Allen Rodens and the Ernie Clements to do well. It's instead you have a hopefully going to be a solid hitter in Daulton Varsho. I think your 5 now are pretty rounded out, right? You know you're going to have Bichette, Santander, and Vlad and then Santander. Then you have either Daulton Varsho or George Springer sort of in that 4-5 hole. So for me, it's if they can keep the production going, I think you're looking at a very strong 1 to 5. It's after that where I think this team, you see the holes anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly go back to your overreaction point with the the 10-game stretch. Yeah, maybe we overreacted a little in the sense of like, oh, like there was no hope in sight, like it was going to last the entire season. Maybe we kind of portrayed that a little bit too much, but I think, like at that point, we reacted properly for what was going on. It was horrific baseball. You said this team might go through stretches like that. I hope that never happens again. I do not want to go through another 10-game stretch where this team looks like they're playing T-ball in the MLB. It's not a fun scenario, and a team should not be playing that bad. They have guys like Santander, they have guys like Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Daulton Varsho, who's been looking good, George Springer, who's having a little bit of a bounce back season, obviously from last year. So hopefully those stretches don't happen again. But you brought up Daulton Varsho. He looks really good right now. And it's because he's continued to hit. That's one nice thing about this Daulton Varsho recovery process is he was still able to DH. He was still able to get those plate appearances in AAA, obviously in spring training as well. He didn't have a bunch of months off in a row, and he's kind of just getting thrown back into the action. He has been seeing live pitching, so that has helped him out drastically. And obviously hit 2 home runs in this series, the first 3-game series back for this season. But even just the at-bats, like before he hit that backside home run, obviously, like just looking at the backside home run, Daulton Varsho hitting opposite field home runs, that just doesn't happen too often. He absolutely crushed that pitch. But like the pitch before, he hammers one to right field. It's like 8 feet, maybe even 6 feet just right of the foul pole. And then the next pitch obviously takes the other way. So Daulton Varsho's seeing the ball really well. And again, he could be that little spark plug, at least in the short term. You can't expect Daulton Varsho to hit 2 home runs in a 3-game series every single time. But if we can get some power in this middle of the order, if the Santanders and Vladis can still get on base and obviously want them to hit home runs as well, that might be a little bit of a saving grace that we do have with the power bats on this baseball team.
Yeah, you're talking about Daulton Varsho's at bats, and Carter. I mean, you go look at his very next at bat where he again just sends one foul down the right down the right field line. It's awesome to see because you're not seeing, with some guys they might hit home runs, but the at bats don't look very good and they just get a hold of one, right? And you're like, well, you can't really bank on them doing anything because you just saw them struggle through how many ever plate appearances. It hasn't been that way for Daulton Varsho. Daulton Varsho, even in going into spring or back to spring training, we said this looks like the Daulton Varsho we've needed the past few seasons. You know what you can expect from his defense, but the bat has just been so not there, not consistent, I guess. And so if you can get that from him this season with the addition of Santander, with the resurgence from George Springer, with Vladdy and Bo both having a season that, somewhat is what you want from them. Again, with Vladdy a little bit in spurts, and I think he's just starting to heat up now. I think the pieces can align for this to be a good year. It's just, does it all come together? And that's something we've been saying for the past, 4 years, Carter, is can everybody play at their best together? And that's been a huge point we've sort of been seeing on this team is that they haven't been able to put it together.
Yeah, for me right now, when we're looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, I think for the most part, the pitching is going to be fine. The pitching is going to be good enough that they're staying in baseball games. If the Jays are up like in the last 3 or so innings, the game's pretty much over. If you have Yimi Garcia coming out, Mason Fleury had through 6 pitches, got 4 outs. It's a pretty nice efficiency, obviously, from the rookie coming from that left side. Brendan Little's been really good this year. Chad Green solid. Jeff Hoffman, I mean, this guy's the best reliever we've seen on this team since Roberto Osuna. I don't even think that's a debate whatsoever. This guy is an absolute dog. Again, that second game of the series goes out and gets 2 innings of scoreless ball. It's absolutely insane. You get this guy for 3 more years, $11 million. Sign me up for that. It's going to be a lot of fun watching this bullpen. So if they're in winning scenarios, if their offense can literally just put up 3, 4, 5 runs, this team is going to be set up for success. The issue is, are they going to be able to consistently do that? We haven't seen that throughout this season so far. But maybe things are turning around. We always hear the narratives of the Santander slow starter. The Vladimir Guerrero Jr. kind of doesn't get going until the middle of May. At least that was the story last season. So again, those guys are going to get better. My biggest concern is obviously the middle of the order, but you try to play it with that hot hand approach. But the only unfortunate part is the Jays really haven't been giving John Schneider the opportunity to go with that hot hand because nobody's really caught fire early on the season.
No, and that's the biggest problem. And, is that I think for a lot of this season, and don't get me wrong, we've had the conversation that this is a very hard point in the Blue Jays schedule. The start of this year was going to be rough. We said if they can come out around 500 from this first month, this April month, they might be able to succeed this season. And you know what? They're 1 game under 500, and you just took 2 of 3 against their Boston Red Sox. So again, I go back to the overreaction. It wasn't an overreaction, but I think it's not the season-ending blow-up maybe that we portrayed a little bit because you see what can happen and what this team's potential can be. It's just that it does feel like everything has to work at the same time. And yeah, you're right. You talk about the bullpen, Carter, and they've been just excellent so far. Um, I mean, Jeff Hoffman is an absolute dog. There is nobody better right now. That guy, I think he had the most wins and the most saves on the Toronto Blue Jays. So crazy statistic there. And yeah, I don't know. I think the Daulton Varsho edition might just be, like we said, going into this year, you needed two guys to have a great season, and that's Daulton Varsho and Alejandro Kirk. Have you seen that from Alejandro Kirk? No, not really. But he saved some games for the Toronto Blue Jays. And Daulton Varsho being back in the 3 games you've seen of him, he's looked fantastic. He's right back to making crazy catches in the outfield. Like he made one just this last game as well, as he sort of jumps backwards into backwards into the wall and makes a nice catch. This is a fun team to watch. And you know what, Carter, I know you have the Daulton Varsho jersey, but I think every game that I watch him play, I become more and more and more of a Daulton Varsho stan. I'm his he's my guy. I'm right on board with you right now. Daulton Varsho may be one of the most fun players to watch on the Toronto Blue Jays.
And nobody's expecting this offense to be this top 5 offense in baseball, top 10 offense in baseball. We just kind of want them to be average. Because, like, again, with the bullpen, the way they're playing, the starting pitching, maybe you do have a little bit of issues now with Bowden Francis. Again, that 5th rotation spot, I'm not sure what they're going to do in the short term. There is a trade deadline. There is Alek Manoah coming back. So if you can just kind of stay afloat with the pitching up until then, you're going to be all right. But with Alejandro Kirk, again, hasn't been the season that you've ideally wanted. But these last couple of games, he's looked really, really good. In that second game of the series, all 4 times he put the ball in play, he hit over 100 miles an hour. When you look at this last game, he almost had a home run on that double. Obviously, it's Alejandro Kirk. So unfortunately, that turns into a long single. But again, the at-bats have looked a whole lot better. He is hammering the baseball. And that's what you want from, again, a guy in the middle of the order. Somebody is needed to step up on this baseball team. And it would be very good if that guy was Alejandro Kirk, especially with the batting profile that he does have. Already a guy that kind of knows his own well. If he can start driving the baseball and driving in some of those runners, again, that's what you need to see for this team to be successful long-term.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back because, we got a lot more to talk about from these 2 games because I think this has changed a little bit of the narrative with this team now only being 1 game under 500. And I think you're seeing, this potential there again. And I don't want to go too far the other way, but we'll talk about all that when we come back. Today's episode brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick. And I've talked about this a ton too, because this is sort of blows my mind a little bit. So the Fire TV is apparently also an Xbox. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Unlimited with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, and as easily as you stream your favorite shows, you can play games. It's sort of wild. And I said for a long time I was a PlayStation guy. I've always been a PlayStation guy. But if I don't have to have a console and I can literally just turn my TV on and I can play Xbox, that's unreal. So I would suggest you guys give it a try. That's again the Amazon Fire TV Stick. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Unlimited subscriptions and compatible controller required. It's available on select devices, including the Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, the Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and the Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. So make sure you guys do go and check that out if you can. A lot more to get into, Carter. I sort of want to go back to sort of what I was just talking about, right? Is that I don't want to go too far the other way now, right? We came off sort of a spell of bad baseball into a series that turned out to be a fun series to watch. And it's always fun. Don't get me wrong. It's always fun when it's the Toronto Blue Jays versus another AL East opponent. But you started to see the gears turn. And I said, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., these are the moments that really make you love the guy. When he hits that 3-run bomb, it's a little bit of the celebration, the little bat flip. I love that. It was so much fun to watch. And we're getting now to a point where we look at the schedule and you're seeing some opportunity to take advantage, right? This is the time where, okay, 1 game under 500. Now we look ahead to the next 4, 5, 6 series coming up. And you're like, wow, this is a point the Blue Jays can get back above 500 and maybe start doing some damage in the AL East standings.
Well, and one thing that we've noticed this year that did not happen last year is, at least against the Boston Red Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays are playing some pretty solid baseball. Obviously, earlier in the season, they win a 4-game set 3-1, and then obviously coming back to win this series as well. And that's how you're going to make the ground the fastest, obviously, in the AL East, is by beating other teams in the AL East. So that's why it doesn't matter if the games are in April or May or if they're in September. These games are going to be massive for the Toronto Blue Jays to end up winning and taking. But you kind of talked about the schedule, and there again, obviously, there's going to be some tough teams that they're going to go up against. The next series is the Cleveland Guardians that we will go over in the third series. Then you got the Los Angeles Angels, who started out kind of hot, but now Mike Trout, unfortunately, does the yearly thing where he got hurt. I hate obviously seeing it, but again, it's like I waking up in the morning. That's kind of what it is on a yearly basis. But then you get the Mariners, you get the Tampa Bay Rays, the Detroit Tigers, who look really good actually this year. The Padres, which will be a tough series, the Tampa Bay Rays again. So again, like you're not playing necessarily the Chicago White Sox or the Colorado Rockies, who might be this year's Chicago White Sox, but it is obviously a lot easier than the schedule was in April. You just got to take advantage of a lot of these games, especially early on in the season. When you're trying to be a playoff team, you're trying to obviously not make a playoff push in May or April, but you got to win games early on. You got to kind of get this momentum, especially after you just played some of the worst baseball that we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, and that's right. And don't get me wrong, every team in baseball goes through a spell in their season where it's not the baseball you want to play. I think the difference was that it lasted a little bit longer, and that's where the worry started to creep in for us. Now, I mean, we look at this, and Cleveland, we'll talk more about it, but that's going to be a hard series. It's not going to be easy. But then, like Carter said, you go into the Angels, who they had a good start, but it's the Angels, and they're not that good. Trout's out. He was, I think, tied for the lead at one point in home runs. So when you talk about taking advantage, right? And I think at the end of May, if we're thinking that this team has a chance to be a playoff team, you probably have to be 6 games out, 5-6 games over 500 at that point to realistically for us to have the conversation around playoffs going into June. I think that's a fair statement, right?
If you're around 500, I think you're still okay. Obviously, you want to be a million games over 500, but I think as long as you're not below 500, you're probably fine. Around the trade deadline, that's when you just want to be in a position where you can buy and add to this team. If you're in that same scenario that you are in 2024, obviously you're not going to be buying at that deadline. So you do have to play. I think you got to play better baseball, obviously, than you've been playing recently. You would like to be 5 games above 500. I think that would be a very good scenario for the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, more than that would be much appreciated. But if you're around that 500 mark, I think this team still probably will end up buying at this trade deadline. But one thing that we haven't talked about yet is Jose Berrios. Yeah. What a performance from this guy. I thought the Blue Jays were going to do it to him again, where he gave up 2 runs and then just absolutely no run support whatsoever. Because that is one thing that is a little bit worrisome from these games. That game 2 looked a whole lot like the 9 games before, obviously, until we had that big inning with the back-to-back bombs by Varsho and Kirk. Again, just so fun watching home runs. The Blue Jays scored 11 home runs in this series, 10 of them off the home run ball. So doesn't matter. Obviously, right there, the Toronto Blue Jays scoring a lot more runs when you do hit home runs against other teams. Now it's like that has been a massive narrative for this team right now. Their pitchers have given up the most runs or home runs in the MLB, and they were second last in home runs. So that home run ball is so integral, obviously, to this baseball team. And that's why we were so frustrated, because we know how good Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is. We know how good Anthony Santander can be. Having those guys for the next 5 years hitting back-to-back, that is sign me up for that as well. Like, that is going to be so fun to watch for the foreseeable future. Just surrounding these guys is going to be the biggest thing. With Bichette, I still want to see more power from him. But overall, like, from where we were 3 days ago and compared to where we are now, again, you don't want to get too high, obviously, because there is still some things that were going wrong in this series. But a massive comeback and a massive momentum boost for this team that is going into a Cleveland Guardians series.
I think it's the confidence from the fan base, right? Like we're surrounded, we're in the sort of narrative when it comes to the Toronto Blue Jays fan base, right? We hear a lot of stuff. We hear from our friends, we hear on Twitter and on TikTok and Instagram and on our videos of what people are commenting. And everybody was very, very low on this team. Even after the game 2, people still were pretty low. Right? We had the conversation about Ross Atkins and what happens if this is a failing season. And people sort of didn't budge a whole lot, I guess. They were stuck that this team isn't very good. Now I think we go out the other way, and we had conversations with friends just after game 3 here. And it's the hope, I think, a little bit. It felt like during that 10-game stretch, it was like the hope was being slowly ripped away from you. And you were starting to see that maybe this team doesn't have the ability to fight back. Now, after game 3 here of this Boston Red Sox series, even those people that were saying that are a little bit more hopeful. And it's going to take some time and a lot of wins for this Toronto Blue Jays team, I think, for the fan base to reignite. I don't think that's happening yet, but I think the more and more you can build up that hope within the fan base, I think is much needed too. I mean, you saw at the game card when Vlad hit the 3-run home run, the whole stand just went absolutely ballistic. Honestly, that's going to be a wallpaper on somebody's phone because it's Vlad tossing the bat and everybody in the stands are getting up. And that's what baseball is all about. And that's why you talked about the home run ball and why it's so important. That right there, it jumpstarts the energy in the building. It jumpstarts the energy in the dugout. And it is a little bit of like a spark plug for this team. So that was fantastic to watch. And just going back on your Jose Berrios point, Carter, great day. Again, I'm not really worried about the pitching. They went through it again, a bad spell because they didn't have their best games and the offense couldn't then show up to pick them up, right? And that is an issue that we've seen is if these starters do have a bad day, it's like, oh no, it's over because you don't think this offense is going to score runs. But if they can, going back, I guess, to Jose Berrios and the home run ball part of it and sort of linking those two together, if you start hitting the home run ball, we've seen that this team can get on base and get themselves into scoring position. The problem is that they just can't be driven in. And over this Boston Red Sox series, you're starting to see a little bit more of that, which is just massive for this Blue Jays team.
Well, it kind of felt like the Blue Jays were a little bit dead in the water again, even in this game. And then Daulton Varsho hits a home run. And then you kind of, like you said, that hope notion, you start feeling a little bit better about how the game is going to go. And then that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at bat, I definitely want to go over. First pitch that Justin Slayton throws is a cutter on the outside part of the plate. Vladdy was definitely like just swinging just based off how the game was going. He wanted to do damage. You could tell. Really bad swing. Did not obviously leave a good taste in your mouth after that. Like not the swing you want in the biggest scenario of the game. But after that, getting cutters, getting fastballs, and then Justin Slayton decides to throw him a low curveball. That ball's out of the zone, and he absolutely punches that thing out of the stadium. That was a 17-degree launch angle. That was out of the stadium in like 3 seconds, it felt like.
Yeah.
Like it was just a frozen rope into the left field stands. Absolutely unbelievable bat by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And you talked about the emotion that he saw. Looking back to the dugout, throwing the bat and getting the boys fired up. That's why we watch this team. That is what makes us so fired up about this baseball team is seeing moments like that. And we know, again, that with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., with the Bichette, there are pieces on this team that can, if they continue to play good baseball, this team can have a very successful season. We just got to get that consistency and figure out how to, keep it going for, just without going through those spans where you're not getting any offense whatsoever.
Yeah, and you know what? It sort of reminded me of a conversation we had. I don't know if it was in the offseason or at the beginning of the year. But it went back to the whole like showing emotion and being, fun. And you know what? To me, those are fun moments. That's the fun I want to see to be had. I love the bat flips. I've always been a bat flip guy or a celebration after a big moment. That stuff I love. And seeing the emotion on Vlad from that situation. And even on when he stole the third base bag there as well, Carter. Or when he was going to third, he took the ball off the heel of his foot in game 2. In those scenarios, to see Vlad light up, that is sort of like the leader of this team, right? I think everybody looks at Vlad as if somebody's going to do something, it's going to be him, right? And I think so to see the emotion come from him and the excitement, that gets me more fired up. That gets the dugout more fired up. Some of these guys are fairly young, and Vlad's not an old guy, but they sort of look to him as, him and Bo as being the leaders on this team. And I think when you see the emotion and see them being fired up in those situations, I think it's got to do something to you as a player, right?
Absolutely. It's just like the feeling and the vibe around the clubhouse is such a massive thing. If your teammates are firing and they're hitting very well, that's one of those things that it's a lot easier to hit well if the other boys are confident, if they're positive and they are producing. It's kind of like a plague, success kind of, leaks through the team. And that's exactly what you want to see from these players. But the last thing that I kind of wanted to go into is just throwing out a little bit of just some nods to some smaller plays with that throughout the game. Aston Barger had a very nice diamond play in that earlier in the game. I think it was the third inning that he had a nice, obviously, diamond catch. And in those moments, you think that he might speed it up a little bit, kind of rush the throw, but he does take his time, makes a very good throw to Bichette. You obviously brought up the Daulton Varsho catch in the outfield. That's the classic Daulton Varsho you want to see. Not exactly, the one where he's falling all over the place, still making a very good catch, obviously. But that's the more traditional one. Tracks the ball very well right off the bat. kind of brace himself at the wall. A little bit nervous coming off of that shoulder injury because you don't want him to be taking these massive collisions. Obviously, 3 games back from that shoulder surgery, but obviously it was fine and ended up hitting a home run in the game. So clearly that did not matter for Daulton Varsho whatsoever. But yeah, it's just the little things that you got to do in these games that obviously add up in the big picture. And the last thing I kind of wanted to go over is I know Bichette had a rough game a couple games ago, but he's looked really good defensively this season.
Yeah.
He's making all the routine plays. He's made a couple nice plays as well. Just throughout the games, they were roping baseballs down. I think it was a Trevor Story at bat where they hammered a ball at Bichette. It was pretty nonchalant about it, just backhands it and nice chuck over to first base. Just looks a lot more confident over there at shortstop. And I'm not sure if it's because he has, Andrus Gimenez across the diamond a lot of the time, kind of helping him out, especially up the middle on those plays. But Bichette looks a whole lot better defensively. Probably the best I've seen him look defensively throughout his career.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I got to give him some credit too, because, and you know what? I've never been on the Bichette sucks defensively train. Like maybe 2 years ago, but even last year, I was trying to like bring it back a little bit because you saw him sort of developing as a defensive player. And going into this year, I know a lot of people were still very down on Bichette, and it's sort of one of those situations where every time he makes a mistake, people are going to let you know that he made a mistake. Whereas, yeah, there's not too many plays now where I'm not confident in Bichette making a play. Yes, there are going to be a couple throughout the season. I mean, we've seen a couple of those mishaps from Andrus Gimenez at second base, who is a gold, possibly platinum glove defender. So I don't know. I think you can't take too much away from one play. It's the everyday, how is Bichette playing? And I look back and I think he's done very, very well. And going back to the Addison Barger piece as well, Carter, I think the good thing with Addison Barger is, and maybe he's starting to realize this, is that he has such great arm strength that as long as he can make the routine plays or take an extra second because he has such a powerful arm that the ball is going to get there and he doesn't have to rush and he doesn't have to overthrow. He's just got to throw the ball normally. There's not too many players in the game that chuck the ball like Addison Barger does. So that is a great thing to see too. But Carter, in saying all of that, we do have a series to tee up. The Cleveland Guardians versus the Toronto Blue Jays coming at you. Some weird game times for this one. I sort of love it because it's on the weekend and it's works for me, but weird game times. Let's get into all that when we come back. So, Carter, Toronto Blue Jays versus the Cleveland Guardians starting today when you guys are watching this. Chris Bassitt versus Logan Allen on the mound, I believe, for this first game of the series. So, again, an interesting one there. I've liked what Chris Bassitt has done all season. I mean, I think he still sits at a 2.6 ERA. So I'm really hoping to see him continue to have success. I know his whip was like pretty good at one point. I think it's up above 1.1 now, if I'm not mistaken, but still an incredible season so far from Chris Bassitt. I'm really excited to see what he can bring. And I think Logan Allen's a guy that this team can take advantage of. We talked about this team having to see good pitching all the time. They made Tanner Houck look pretty good last game. So hopefully they can take it to Logan Allen and really take advantage of game one here.
This team's been hitting lefties really well this season, especially Alejandro Kirk that we went over a couple episodes ago. So you got to be optimistic, especially coming off of these last 2 games from the Boston Red Sox. Just want to throw it in there. Chris Bassitt 117 whip now. So again, if you have a whip around 1 or just over 1, that's going to be a good thing for your success in the season. I think Chris Bassitt so far, I don't really think it's debate. He's been the best pitcher on the Toronto Blue Jays, at least starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays up to this point. So obviously very confident with Chris Bassitt on the mound. Again, this is where you want to keep going and build that momentum. You don't want to drop this game and lose all that momentum that you just got from this Boston Red Sox series. You like the pitching matchup. If you can continue to just hit the long ball, continue to just hit for power, hit slugging. It doesn't have to be home runs necessarily, but you want to hit doubles. You want to hit triples ideally. But obviously, still, it has to be specific players on this team to hit triples for most scenarios. But you just want to see power. You don't want to just see single. You want to be able to get that big hit, and that's what the Toronto Blue Jays did in those last 2 games of that Boston Red Sox series. So I'm going to be optimistic here. I think you got to win that first game. You got to take that one against Allen, obviously, with Bassitt on the mound. Later on in the series, you have some interesting matchups. Gavin Williams, you're going to come across. I think that's another guy you got to take advantage of. So I'm going to go 2 out of 3 here for the Toronto Blue Jays, continue that momentum that they got from the last series.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Bowden Francis has the game 3, which I'm not. I haven't been super high on Bowden Francis this season. I think he's done a lot of the same, but I think there are holes in his game. I think he's a great pitcher still, and I want to see him bounce back. But I think those first 2 games of this series are so pivotal for this team to succeed in this specific series. Carter, and I just want to go through the game times here just so that people know as well. So Central Time, that's where we are. So again, I think Eastern Time's what, an hour ahead of us? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's
So
exactly how it
the
works. So you
set,
figured that one out a year and a half into the podcast.
there we go. Perfect. I usually just don't think about it. 6:07, or I guess it'd be 7:07 game time Eastern on Friday. Saturday, 3:07 game time Eastern, and Sunday is 12:37 Eastern. So just a little bit strange, sort of all over the place. But for a weekend series, again, like I said, I like it. Again, it could be I have to work Winnipeg Jets games, so I'm hoping that that they don't need a game 7 and I can have a very chill Sunday. But I might have to work, and then it would work sort of perfectly to be able to watch the for me it would be the 12:37 game on the Sunday. So I don't know. How do you feel about them sort of being all over the place? Usually, I like to have like games like sort of set, but on the weekends, I do like the earlier games.
No, I like afternoon games, especially on the weekends as well. 12:37 our time for the people watching Toronto. It would always be 1:37 with
Yeah.
that hour delay. But I don't really mind these game times. Again, I like just chilling in the afternoon. You don't have to stay up. I mean, you're gonna be up on a Saturday anyway, but you don't have to sit. Usually, you're going out on a Saturday night, or at least hanging out with some friends, whatever. It gives you the opportunity to not kind of be stuck like watching the Jays games. Obviously, we do enjoy it, so stuck isn't necessarily the right word. But it is nice to obviously have that little bit of freedom on a Friday or Saturday night that you can go out and then kind of see some buddies. So Sunday, perfect thing to do in the morning, kind of just hang out and just wait for the Toronto Blue Jays game to come on the TV. So I'm excited for it. I like that they do you kind of flip around the time sometimes, especially when you get for us anyway 6:07 games throughout the entire week. For you guys 7:07, but yeah, definitely nice to switch it up, especially for the weekend.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat. I don't know. Sometimes it's a little weird because like I have to feel like oh man, I got to look at what time the game is today because it's sometimes all over the map. But no, I like it too. The weekends, I mean, it's a perfect time, especially with the summer coming up here. The weather's been great. We've been out golfing, and you crack a beer, you watch the game, you have some buddies over. It's perfect. It honestly is for the weekend games. Like a 2:07 for us is like perfect. It's like a perfect little preamble to whatever we're gonna do at night. You get to watch the games with friends. It's great. In saying that, this is our Friday episode. So, yeah, I sort of this week has flown by a little bit for me, Carter. A lot going on, it feels like, but also it's been sort of chill too. So, yeah, I don't know. It's nice. It's going to be a nice weekend. We're going to have some fun. Make sure you guys check out the YouTube page, the TikTok, and the Instagram, all for the post game shorts that we'll do. And then, yeah, we'll be back with you guys on Monday, hopefully after a Toronto Blue Jays series win. Anything else you got for us today, Carter? Or do you want to sort of get out of here and get the weekends underway?
Just one more thing I'll bring up. Just big day. Obviously on that Wednesday night, the Jets got a win. The Blue Jays actually scored some offense, so we obviously had a little bit of a celebration. And I'm definitely feeling it a little bit for this episode. I'm not running off of a ton of sleep, but thank you guys for obviously hanging around. The likes, comments, all the support recently. It has been much appreciated. But yeah, just enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the warm weather that we're going to have. Maybe get around on the golf course. We're definitely going to be doing that this weekend as well. And just have a good time. Go see your friends. Go talk to your family, and we will talk to you guys again on Monday.